Now, I realize we've been at this for some time already, but at the risk of derailing the dialogue you initiated, and may I just say how thrilled I am that you did, Karkat, I would just like to qualify my entire analysis of your Alternian culture by saying that in contrast with life on before us, while your people may have engaged in violent, lethal class struggle for millions of weeks, by no means does this imply that the beforean way of life was entirely without problematic elements, perhaps even more disturbing and insidious for their lack of acknowledgement and open discussion, particularly as a consequence of what, in my view, were widely and dismayingly unexamined systemic social injustices resulting from the entrenched power dynamics in play. Dynamics strikingly similar to those of your planet, the markedly more bellicose iteration, which has only served to fully vindicate my hypothesis that such a hierarchy is really predicated on intrinsic dysfunction and failure to shift all the usual narratives and undiagnosed problems to an open, judgment-free discourse through which problematic issues may be constructively channeled into more intelligently problematized avenues of discussion. Now, before I continue, it is only decent of me to warn you about certain triggers that are surely ahead in this essay. I mean, conversation. These triggers include, but likely will not be limited to, class oppression, calling culture and violence against grubs, lucid abuse, complimentary and analogous hate speech, hate filling, slurries, and other concupiscent fluids, lifespan shaming, ableist slurs, prolix dissertation. Actually, maybe it would be easier for you to list your triggers, and I'll do my best to avoid those topics, or at least navigate them more delicately if at all possible. Great! It sounds like you don't have any triggers, at least none that you know about. I'll proceed with caution nevertheless. Just please let me know if you begin feeling triggered by anything that I'm saying, and we'll take a brief time out while you summon your Moriel to help pacify you, assuming you have one. Not that I'm presuming you do, but I heard that you did. Is that correct? If not, I apologize. I further apologize if your orientation precludes the possibility as a pale, aromantic, pan-quadrant, demi-romantic, something in the gray-pale sexual department or such, and hopefully you are not triggered by such presumptuous, concilianormative language. It would not be the first time I was guilty of such an inexcusable microaggression, and I am not so oblivious to my own romantic privilege to believe it will be the last time either. I'm glad I brought up the subject of unexamined privilege because it dovetails beautifully with the point I was about to make regarding beforean society and its average umbral potentiality which later manifested through the kind of Alternian brutality you were all too familiar with. Those in the higher echelons of the hemospectrum, such as the ceruleans or blue bloods. Careful being loose with such terminology is opening the floodgates to a whole host of toxic sickness language and homophobic slurs. They would, when addressing the challenges faced by those lower on the spectrum, such as the mid-hues, or in particular warmer cases such as umbers, ochres, or rust bloods, another slur, highly problematic, deeply offensive and triggering terminology, strongly imploring you to steer clear of this term. They would be well advised to check their cerulean privilege before dismissing hardships or marginalizing claims of oppression, which may be hard for them to relate to or identify with or empathize with due to their advantageous position on the beforean Alternian power structures. And some may argue that in our peaceful utopian culture we have freed ourselves from injustices and disparities in privilege, largely equal rights distributed across the And some may argue that in our peaceful utopian culture we have freed ourselves from injustices and disparities in privilege in a scarcity economy, largely equal rights distributed across the hemospectrum, and therefore there is no need to champion and therefore exist in a post-spectral world, laugh out loud, and therefore there is no need to champion important social causes, and that there is nothing left to debate. But really, nothing could be further from the truth. You just need to educate yourself and carefully investigate the long-standing power dynamics in play. For instance, a seemingly harmless remark from a spotted cerulean towards an umber, or, God forbid, a burgundy, or yes, even a warm identifying physically cooler case about their very long-term plans, such as on the order of centuries, then this may prove to be a very hurtful microaggression due to the fact that low hues cannot possibly live that long themselves, and that the more privileged case could easily outlive dozens of generations of mid-hues, or hundreds of generations of BUOYs, burgundy, umber, ochre, yellow greens. Note, please avoid describing the lattermost as lime bloods, as that has been historically used as a particularly vicious epithet. I don't know anything from here.